Uh, when you least expect it, that's when DEA will come in. I had a pharmacy in New York that Jim Schiffer and I, he's our client, and I was out in pharmacy last year, and I went through all his record. I told him where he should have all his records, and he followed everything I told him, because I do a report with the observations and recommendations, and he did everything according to the way I instructed him to. Well, DEA came into his pharmacy and was looking at certain prescriptions and for a certain doctor, and then they left. Nothing was said. You know, they took copies of the prescription and provided a receipt for that. But several weeks later, they get a call from DEA, same office, that told them that they were coming on Monday, and this is like Tuesday, right? They were coming on Monday to do a full inspection of his pharmacy, and that they may be there for 3 days. Well, it's what they were planning on doing, not only the inspection, but they were going to audit some of his controlled substances. So he asked me, what should I do? I said, well, you know, if your records are good, that's good. If not, you know, then you're going to have an issue. And one thing led to another. I was there on a Friday, and I explained to them that when DEA tells you they're coming, that's unusual. DEA don't normally tell you. They don't call you. Okay, they show up unannounced, and the day that you really don't want them to be there. And I explained to him exactly what the whole steps, and I looked at all his records. His records were fantastic. Well, DEA showed up at 9 o'clock. They were there. When he opened his pharmacy, sure enough, they jump out of the car, and you know, and they were there, and you know, and identified themselves, and they walked in. And then they start doing the inspection. One was doing all the closing inventory, counting all the controls. There were several other diversion investigators looking at the prescription, and you had another diversion investigator looking at the required records. Well, he called me to say they're here. I said, all right, fine. Call me when they're done. You know, and sometime around 3:30, 4 o'clock, he called me and said that DEA was done, and that they said, you know, that all the records were good, and that they were done. They weren't coming back for day 2 or day 3. And he really thanked me and Jimmy. He called Jimmy later on during that day to thank him, you know, to thank him because he met me through Jimmy Schiffer. And what was good about it is I said to him, I have a website. I said to him, I said, do you mind giving me a letter of recommendation so I can put it on my website? The following day he wrote a letter. It was a fantastic letter. But, you know, again, if he had violations, they would have multiplied times 10,000 for each violation. Then the biggest concern of mine was his prescriptions. I know I've done, you know, dispensing records, looked at his dispensing records, and looked at the doctors, and primarily he was a worksman comp physician. I mean, pharmacy, but all those records were good, and that's the same thing DEA said. All the records are good. There were no questionable prescriptions in there, and all the oxycodone 30 milligrams were all paid with insurance, and I think maybe one patient paid cash because they lost their insurance due to the fact that he was laid off from work. But other than that, he was good. I mean, that was the happy story. You know, the not so happy stories usually occur after DEA goes in, and then they call me and say, you know, can you help me out? And that's where then we go out, and I would look at all his records and all his security. But by that time, you know, it's too late. They're going to wind up paying a fine. And then the question is, how much is the fine and what exactly are the allegations? Because DEA makes mistakes. You know, they make a lot of mistakes.